Closed session, you come out of closed session. I'm ready.
Second.
There, I have a closed session. To report on closed session, we pick up, real estate and contract matters, and both of those on the, are on the agenda tonight. We'll keep going. First is a moment of silence, and we have, two people, two families. Larry Spurgeon, North Poplar Beach, he was the commissioner there for a long time, and really an asset to the community and to the town. And then Barbara Clark, and I'm not familiar with her, but we need to to their, think about them and their family. So let's have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Make sure that mic's on. Let's have a pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Public comment.
Hey.
Let me guess.
Part of it, anyway. And I got a phone call today, so I kind of got it hooked up. So on the parking beside my house, first off, I was astonished that instead of going in diagonally to park, it's now straight in parking. And I understand that was to get one more spot on both sides. But we got to get every nickel out of it we can, which brings up, I was told that there is consideration of putting paid parking in between now and September, where that wasn't going to be the case before. I feel like I was kind of, let's see what we can do to get Susan on board. Susan got on board and we changed the rule. So not happy about that going to paid parking. So I want you to know that. It's going to be hard enough when it does, but now there's not a fence. And until the fence gets put in, which I understand is June, and that's not your fault, and I get that. But I still feel like it was a decoy to get me on board, and I'm not happy about it, and I'm not going to pretend to be. I have, since that lot has been cleared, and it's not any reflection on anything the town has done, I have picked up 6 bags of trash on my land. 6. It may be more than that, but you know, you get frustrated and you just say no. So I'm not happy. I want to wait until it's ready. I want to wait. I don't understand why we all of a sudden have to have this extra money. I don't get it. So unless somebody can show me that in numbers and writing, I'm not going to get on board with it. I'm going to be loud because I don't like it. Second thing, which I'm sure you know what I'm going to talk about, is the noise ordinance is still not on the agenda. I'm asking, and I'll start being ugly about it because I'm the one that pays the price for the noise ordinance. I don't think I've asked for anything unreasonable. I just want the date. The times change Monday through Thursday to 10 o'clock instead of 11. And you can do what you want on the weekend because I want people to succeed and be successful in their business. But there's no reason why during the week it has to be as loud as it is until 11 o'clock at night. Sometimes it's 11:30 until I call those gentlemen back there and they go and shut it off. So that's my 2 complaints.
I think on the noise ordinance, we need to assign that to the planning board and look at what other towns are doing and what the options are for protecting your property and others. Go ahead.
That's police, not planning board. I mean, in our department, we don't even have the ability to measure it. So
Is that ordinance in the?
no, it's on chapter 16. It's in.
It's enforced by the police department.
Enforced? So
We worked on it all together last time.
That was-
When we got it together, it was town manager, department heads, me. So
let's figure out where so we can look at it. But
They enforce it to the decimals that we have,
Yeah.
which to me is still too loud, but only because it's the base that's the issue. I cannot put anything on that wall in my house or it will come down. It will, but it stays within ordinance because it doesn't play longer than a certain amount of time because it's just the base. So but again, even Sunday, actually, I should have said Sunday, through Thursday, I think the time should be cut back. Nothing in the town except for that business is open past 9 o'clock. Nothing. And it just happens to be that I get a DJ that plays The Devil Goes Down to Georgia every night, because the DJ's from Georgia. I know, because he's told me every night. So that's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking to stop it out entirely, which I would love, but at least cut it back.
So chapter 10 tells us who, what, when,
Yep.
how to handle it. Can we add it to an agenda for a future meeting, study it?
we can, I was just trying to get it on the best, look at it.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure it's 10, but it's not 16. We know that.
So I think it's general consensus of this board, we need to
Yes.
take it up.
I think so. I looked at I met with Susan and looked at the ordinance, and what I think is a reason to reconsider is that there's a different set of rules and dates and times for commercial versus residential, but we have a lot of people who live in the commercial district because we're not purely commercial. So I think it's worth revisiting the commercial, which would apply where Susan lives.
There's some comparisons to the pickleball issue that came up last year, where that was on the beginning of the day hours. And we looked at that and we made recommendations, changes, and I think we should give it the same attention on this issue.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope you do.
Say okay with the
Can you put that on the radar?
The beginning, yes, I can, Mayor. The fence will go up the beginning of June, I believe around the 3rd is when it's scheduled.
See, I can imagine that we would be ready to have parking in there before that fence is up.
No. We have a choice.
Yeah, so let's just not start it until after that fence is up.
We've got an add-on to the agenda.
Okay.
All right, thank you. That's it. Mayor's minute, and, Mrs. Smith, I think, one thing I want to, say to you is that one of our projects that are not the new building is because of seats. And I want you to know how grateful we are that we would not be having that building without him. And a lot of people forget, once we get caught up in the contracts and all the design and stuff like that, you did all the hard work. You and Steve, I imagine you were assistant mayor and just didn't. So thank you. Yeah, let's have a approval of the regular agenda.
Make a motion to approve the regular agenda as is.
But, yeah, we have, I'd like to make two changes. One is, the parking lot. And it's similar to what we were just discussing, at 12A. And then, I guess the boat ramp and, commercial use of the boat ramp, have 15A, and that's purely just a discussion, no vote. Make a approve the amended agenda.
And second.
Motion second, all in favor? Good. Conflict of interest. Alex, start with you. No. No? No. Approval of the consent agenda.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as published.
And second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Good. Business section, presentation of the management partnership of the Topsail Preserve.
Mr. President.
And, Tankard, if you would, introduce yourself, because I always like having a name and a face.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Another.
My name is Tancred Miller. I am the Director of Division of Coastal Management, otherwise known as CANA. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for having us here today. Members of the community, we're glad to be here. Had a great partnership with the town, going back to Mayor Smith. So we started this conversation. William Snyder was one of the key instigators of bringing the state in to talk about this parcel.
Your family, should they get it now?
So we appreciated the partnership with Christina and town. It's been very, very productive, very cordial. I think it's really gratifying to see the point that we've gone to with this property. So our goal here today, I'll just introduce our staff, bring them up. Jonathan Lucas, right here, and Rachel of Adric. Our goal here today is just to make our first introduction of ourselves to you all, let you know, now that this property is owned by the state, now that it's under state management by DCM, the ideas that we have, the goals that we have for managing this property. There will be a few changes. For the most part, we want things to be status quo. This property belongs to the state, belongs to the community. So we don't want to be disruptive. We want folks to be able to enjoy what you work so hard to protect. So with that, I will turn it over to Jonathan, and he will go through just a few little slides just to let you know. Thanks.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for having us here this evening. We're happy to be here. As a division, we're very excited and thankful for the opportunity to manage this property at the south end. And it's important to note, just as for a point of verbal clarity, that when we talk about it, the state of North Carolina owns the property. The division does not own it. The division is the manager as a state agency on behalf of the state, which owns it. But as a division, we're here at the end of a long process. And I was talking in the audience earlier, but personally, it's the most remarkable success story of grassroots citizen and town effort for land protection that I've seen. So we're impressed. So we understand that this property plays a special role in the lives and hearts of the residents as a place to be in nature, as a place to make memories, have fun. And in a North Carolina that's rapidly changing, our agency, we see that all up and down the coast. But just for instance, here in Pender County, the Coastal Area Management Act was, which is what gives us our mandate as an agency. That was enacted in 1974, and the population of Pender County has increased 255% since 1974. So, so it is special to see the citizens of Topsail Beach who strongly desire to keep this special property what it has been, but to keep it natural and to not see it be changed or be developed. All right. So as a division, our vision for this property going forward and managing the property on behalf of the people of North Carolina is just what I said, keeping it natural for the future. So we'll be managing it for that in perpetuity. And this plan includes two things. One of which is setting aside a separate parcel for the town, which will be developed, some for parking, restroom, ADA compliant boardwalk. And then the main parcel, a separate piece of property, we will be keeping serene, we'll be keeping it undeveloped, a place to experience the coast. And for the residents here, it's one that you don't need to drive all the way to Cape Hatteras National Seashore to see. You have it right here in your town. So, and that is a unique opportunity. All right, so everyone wants to talk about rules, right? Topsail Beach is a town governed by the rule of law, and we don't want anybody to be confused or about what the rules are for this nature preserve. We want it to be simple, and to that end, it's important to state that the division sees that the ordinances for the town are the ordinances and the rules for the preserve. It is in the town limits. And the town already has ordinances, and I'll just name a few that are especially applicable to this site. And there's already ordinances requiring dogs to be on leashes or restrained. There's ordinances for horse permits, littering, firearms, public nudity, noise control, excavation and land disturbance, special events, alcohol, vandalism, and commercial activity. And these town ordinances, as they stand, are the rules for the preserve. However, there's one thing that we have to deal with as a division, and that the requirements for the largest grant that we received, that the Coastal Land Trust received to pay for this property, required that the property be dedicated as, and this is an official title, a state nature preserve. So it's just some background on that. This is I don't like to read slides, but I will. This is the state constitution here. It shall be the policy of this state to conserve and protect its lands and waters for the benefit of all its citizenry. And to this end, it shall be a proper function of the state of North Carolina and its political subdivisions to acquire and preserve park, recreational, and scenic areas, to control and limit the pollution of our air and water, to control excessive noise, and in every other appropriate way to preserve as a part of the common heritage of this state its forests, wetlands, estuaries, beaches, historical sites, open lands, and places of beauty. Isn't what has happened at the South End a perfect example of what was intended here in the state constitution? So section 5 here goes on to direct the General Assembly to prescribe conditions and procedures for this to be done. Okay, and so the General Assembly did that in the Nature's Preserve Act from 1973. The full title is actually State Nature and Historic Dedication, Preserve Dedication Law. But just so just that Nature Preserve Act is the framework under which we are operating as a division for the management of this property. And we do have a few additional rules for the safe and effective management of the property under that we have obligated upon us by this program and this law that are not currently covered by a town ordinance. So I mentioned all the ordinances that do apply, but and I have a list here for it's a list of a small number of items, but right now not currently covered by a town ordinance. And I'm going to highlight these first 5 for you today. Glass, camping, and personal items. Those are already ordinances the town has, but they are strictly for the beach strand. And I'm bringing them up here because, we would want to include those as requirements for the entire preserve, not just the beach strand. And then fires and fireworks, if we keep going down in that section, they are also already regulated by town ordinance. However, it's the regulation is a permitting process, which honestly, in effect, the permitting requirements do keep fires other than in grills and fireworks off the beach and would keep it out of the preserve. However, we want to just make it clear and go ahead and just state outright, Vice mentioned the permitting process, that those prohibitions include the entire reserve. So some other ones that are not under that green box, walking on dunes, that's I think pretty understandable considering the role they play in protecting the land from storm surge and storms. Disturbing native plants and wild animals, digging, introducing non-native plants and animals. Those are all requirements that are specifically stated in the rules for state nature preserves that we have to enact and have to enforce to keep it a natural area. Off-road driving is a controversial one. I put a handout in front of the commissioners and it's available for the public to read and take a copy of there on the desk. But it explains essentially why we are going to have to prohibit beach driving on that portion of Topsail Island now. And the reason is that it's requirement, it's a stipulation attached to the grant funds that were received by the Coastal Land Trust to purchase this property. So it's just not, it's the requirement that had to happen in order to be able to purchase it. And we've looked into, and I spell out more detail on what we've asked and questions we pushed back on, but the requirements are pretty clear. Most particularly from the North Carolina Land and Water Fund, which again, that was the largest grant that was received to purchase this property. And then also non-motorized boats on the beach overnight. And hunting. So I just talk about those two, the non-motorized boats and the hunting. To be frank, those are not requirements that we have to implement as part of the nature preserve program. It seems wise to us that if we don't allow camping and we don't allow personal items left on the beach overnight, it's already a town ordinance. It would probably be simpler just to not keep craft on the beach overnight as well. And then hunting, again, there are nature preserves that allow hunting. It's a legal, nationally, it's in the North Carolina Constitution as well, the right to hunt and fish. We look at it as still, despite the, I guess what some could consider, and what I do consider a large piece of property, we still look at it as there probably would be a safety issue with the number of people who are just recreating on the beach, looking at birds, that have hunting on that site. Again, it's something that if the town wanted to negotiate and talk about, we could do so, because it's not a requirement for nature preserve, like the disturbing of vegetation and, excavation and things like that. But at this point, we would consider those as things we would like to see for the rules for the preserve. So all of these items here that are not currently in ordinance, to the extent they may be appropriate for a proposed conservation overlay district that I've heard is being discussed, or some other method of application through a memorandum of understanding that we are currently working as a staff with the town staff to develop. However it turns out to be best, we're open to that option. And by no means are these rules being presented for any sort of a decision today. It's just for your awareness as you meet us and we talk about our vision for the property, and as we work with the staff to hopefully in the near future bring a more official MOU for approval to this board. Working together, we hope to have a draft ready for that soon. And that's all I have to present. I don't know if there would be any questions for me. And if there's not, what I would do next is would like to turn it over to Carmen Johnson, who is here from the state government, a different agency, the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. But she's their water bird biologist and will be able to speak to the situation with the water bird protections that are being enacted and will be enacted down on that property. So that's all I have. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Johnson, thank you. One item that I know we've been discussing a conservation overlay district for the property that would be specific to that property and can include all even though they're been mentioned in other ordinances. So it's something that we can accomplish that way. I think it's cleaner.
Right.
And gets the point across.
Thank you.
Let me ask you about the off-road driving.
Yes.
And this is the first time we've heard about this.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, through the whole process, it was never brought up that this would be a consequence, or it was something that we could negotiate when we were looking at doing all these things. I mean, it's, all of a sudden they say you can't do it anymore. I mean, it's still not non-negotiable.
No, and I'm sympathetic and I understand, and I'm not able to speak to as far as how that went into the application of the grants and things. I wasn't here for that, but it's been brought up to us, and when we realized that was part of the rules of these grants, we went to the agencies, we went to the grant funding boards, and we talked to the staff, and it, you know, if you look at that chart, it looked like the Coastal Wetland Conservation Grant, because we brought together several grants for this, or the Coastal Land Trust did. They looked, although it's not currently allowed, they sounded like they would be open to discussing and ending the grant. But the problem is we have to get all the grants to agree to it because they all have their strings attached to the property. And the other U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service grant, NAWCA, they were much less willing to entertain the idea. And the Land and Water Fund was especially emphatic that this wasn't brought to us before. It wasn't part of the request. We gave you money on these terms, and now you want to change the agreement that we made. And it wasn't well received our looking into the issue. So.
Yeah, I mean, but I think we didn't know to be able to go to them because we weren't told.
We had a really good part of that process. Yeah. So when they have in their grant language, was there something in there saying when it was applied for that these will be prohibitions on the property, or is it more you need to know to ask, otherwise you aren't going to get it?
For the Land and Water Fund in particular, because I fill out an application for them for another project. What they do is there's a section where they say, do you request any reserved rights? And that's the exact terminology that they use. So obviously when they put the money forward, they gain rights for how the property is used because they've now paid for it and they're invested. But they ask the applicant to check off what are you requesting to reserve as rights for yourself that we probably wouldn't otherwise let you have.
So it would have been the Coastal Land Trust who had to ask at that point.
It would have had to have been asked on the grant application at the time the grant was applied for. And as I put in that document, it may have made the grant less competitive because now it's less of a natural area to have vehicle traffic on. So, and I certainly, I cannot say that would have made the difference in getting it or not. I don't have, I'm not that was too presumptuous, but I am confident that it would have made the grant application less competitive because it would have been a less natural site. And I'm sure that the Coastal Land Trust was trying to do everything they could to make it as appealing as possible to draw his funding and considering the purchase price for what it was.
And I would guess these grants are probably 80% of the purchase price if you added them all together.
Right. I know the town put forward a check. I know there was a significant amount of money raised by the citizens as well, but still the purchase price would have been, I don't want to.
And you would have had to have every single one of these. If anyone said no, then the door got closed.
Each of them was 500,000 to $1 million to $3 million. Yeah.
I know the agencies own the land. The beach, I thought the beach was a federal thing there. So so they can control the beach. I thought it was a federal.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I can speak to that. The beach, okay, is to the high water line is owned by the property owner, but public trust rights encumber that portion of the private property. So if you look at a GIS map of Topsail Beach, you will see people's parcels and on their plats that go out onto the beach for some people. Some people it stops in the dunes, some people it goes out to the beach, and there's even lots, in some towns have, because of erosion, there's whole lots that are actually in the water. Okay, so a person legally owns all the land in their plat. However, if it is beach, there's a general statute that speaks to it, and that goes back to common law, but that says the public has rights of usage on the beach. Okay, so and those public trust rights are things like fishing, recreation, access. Okay, so I'm sure what you're getting at would be then, if the public has right to use the beach,
why can't they access the beach with vehicles, right? I mean, is that
The town ordinance, I mean, we were allowed it before.
correct? Correct. So, and I think that's the answer to the question, is that it's a public trust right to use the beach for the public. You know, a person who owns it can't keep people off the beach. But the state government and the local government still have power to regulate and the responsibility and authority to regulate the beach itself. And so, I mean, I think a good analogy is take fishing, a less, well, I won't say less controversial, but take fishing, for example. The public has a right to fish in the waters of the state. But that doesn't mean that the state government can't regulate that. I mean, right now, you know, the season is closed for speckled trout because of a cold stun that happened back in January. So even though you have a right to fish, the state government can still come in and say, you're not fishing for speckled trout. Okay.
You can't keep them, you can catch
You've been there.
Yeah. Right, and they can prescribe limits, they can prescribe seasons, sizes, all those things. So the same thing with beach driving. Access to beach is absolutely a right of the people of North Carolina. However, town and state government can regulate that, and the town has. The town has a permitting process, and if you've closed off other portions of the beach in Topsail Beach and said no beach driving there, we're going to regulate it, we're going to put it here. Okay, so so it is within the authority of the town, but also the state government as well, to regulate the access on the public trust area. And in this case, we have a state law, the Nature Preserve Act, and our role as a state agency on behalf of the state government, and the legislature purposely funding every year tremendous amounts of money to the Land and Water Fund because they want to see that program continue to conserve land in North Carolina. So you have the state government saying, we support this program to preserve natural areas, and the big picture, preserving those natural areas to continue to be accessible to the public. And this piece of property falling under that particular set of regulations, the Nature Preserve Act, is in keeping with the welfare of the people of North Carolina and in keeping of upholding public trust rights. Even though in this case, those stipulations would require that beach driving not be a method of beach access anymore on that property. But still, overall, the main effort would be that we are, by purchasing this and preserving it, we are in a grander scale, benefiting public trust usage and public access to a natural area and a public trust area.
When we ride our horses on it, we can't drive.
The nature preserve rules do not prohibit horseback riding, but motor vehicles, yes.
So you could drive right up to the edge, Joe, and then it's.
Well, we got property, we still got some property that before we get to the preserve, and we can drive on. I think we'll take that there.
That same area has been prohibited for trucks parking. Up until that area, because that sign is right at the,
I'm not gonna be crossing the town.
yeah, that's right in front of all those houses that they're building. But I think it's gonna get deeper. Reads here real quick on that.
No, I wasn't on that. But I'm just saying, so, I mean, there's no way we can appeal that. We just went to our legislators and told them to do it right.
You could go.
Which I doubt they can do that. I doubt they
I would
can do
be
that.
careful.
Election time's coming up.
Legislatures write the laws, so there's a lot that can be done.
But they fund these groups that are providing these grants also.
They do, they fund the Land and Water Fund.
Yeah.
And they wrote the Nature Preserve Act. Yeah.
I think that, but the main problem I had is that we weren't aware until now. We weren't given a chance to say when they were doing those applications that one of the stipulations we would like to see done. And we could have either negotiated, we still might have lost, but at least we could have, have a say.
We could ask.
And had some, a chance to do something. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You took the hit, not me.
I was wondering how you got that short straw on that one.
The three bankers out there by the door.
Mr. Miller should drive when you go home.
I drove in. I'll get him back.
We can tell you a little bit about the Wildlife Resources Commission's Waterbird project and the work that we're looking forward to partnering with the Division of Coastal Management, the town, and the community. I'm Carmen Johnson. I'm a waterbird biologist with NCWRC, and I coordinate the agency's Waterbirds Investigations and Management Project. I say that I have the best job in the world because I get to travel the coast of North Carolina, going for long walks on the beach, boat rides to look for birds. I also coordinate surveys and work with all of the other agencies and organizations in the state that work with waterbirds. So we coordinate surveys, we share management information, and help to move projects forward, such as beach nourishment. And we find ways to coordinate the concerns of the communities, as well as looking out for the needs of the birds. The Waterbird Project continues a long history of work in the state that was begun by Professor James Parnell at UNCW. His work was to document the history of colonial waterbird nesting locations in the state and to count every single nest of each waterbird species on the coast. This colonial waterbird survey is actually celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. And as you can imagine, the data that are gathered over time from this survey gives a unique perspective on the places that are most important to waterbirds in the state. I've been fortunate enough to visit Topsail Beach many times as part of these surveys, and so I know what a special place it is, both to the birds and to the people who live in this community. Recently, there hasn't been a lot of nesting activity here at the point, but when I look back through our data, I can see least terns, common terns, black skimmers, American oyster catchers, Wilson's plovers, and even piping plovers, which, contrary to some wives' tales, are actually very rare in North Carolina. For instance, we only had 34 pairs in the state last year. So now that the point has been saved, we hope that by helping to save the point and by setting up a bird posting, the south end of the preserve will be a safe place for the birds, and that we hope that they will recognize that this is a safe place for them to nest and raise their young. This year and last summer, Audubon, North Carolina worked with the Coastal Land Trust to establish a bird posting. And the posting that NCWRC will set up in the coming years will be similar to this one, with signs and posts on string and flagging that will run between the posts. If you visited Emerald Isle, North Topsail Beach, or Wrightsville Beach, you've likely seen similar postings to this bird posting. Each year, the postings are set up between March or April, and they're removed at the end of the season, usually by late August. We know that most people want to help the birds, and they want to help them raise their young, but they don't necessarily know how to do this. So the signs and string are there to mark protected areas, giving the birds some space to nest without feeling threatened by people or pets. It helps to let the public know where to avoid so that they don't accidentally scramble any eggs or turn any chicks into chicken nuggets. So NCWRC shares the community's concerns about keeping the point natural looking with a beautiful view that is free of litter, while also communicating important messages about the birds. We use narrow wooden posts that are consistent with other waterbird postings throughout the state. And the signs are only 10 by 12 inches in size, which is pretty small. And so to keep the point looking as natural as possible, we plan to only place these signs on every other post, which I know is a request that has been made in the community. And so rather than doing that, we'll have them on every other post. And so then, as long as there aren't any issues trespass into the posting, we think that we can do that. The string and flagging are narrow so that they do not show up from far away, but they are visible if you get close to the posting, so that therefore people know to remain outside of the posting. And so we hope that that strikes a balance between protecting the birds and minimizing visual impact. Although we remove all of the posting and signage at the end of the season, we're constantly looking for ways to be more environmentally friendly. And so this year, I'm actually testing biodegradable flagging at one of our sites to see if that is a better option for us to put out at some of our sites. So I'll report back on that. We're always looking for ways to better help share the shore between birds and people. The bird nesting areas that are at other beaches in the state have become something that communities are very proud of, and they are popular with visitors and locals alike who enjoy seeing the birds. We're very fortunate to have wonderful partnerships with town officials, police departments, and the public with everything from hosting and things throughout the year. We're looking forward to what the future holds at the point and partnership to protect the beautiful corner of the coast. I hope that you can come out and join us for some of these walks on the beach to look for the birds. They're really cute. And so I mostly just am curious if you have questions. Everything else.
There's one question. I know in our 30-year plan for our beach nourishment, we have to have various kinds, I think several times a year or biannual, I'm not sure. And we having to hire someone to come out and do the, not testing, but the identification and inventory. Is that something is that going to be duplicate of what you're doing, or can your services be expanded to take care of that?
I believe we still have to do those. I'm not exactly sure which requirement that's for, but I believe it is.
Well, I'll send it to you. That way you can, if you can help, that'd be great. The other side, height of the sign, can we lower them a little bit?
So we've already been discussing this a little bit. Okay, so the signposts that I put up and all of our other partners in the state put up are a standard, it's an 8-foot high post. And we tend to dig them in at least 24 inches. So 2 feet down, so they're about 6 feet high. So we do like to keep them standard across the state, just because, you know, if somebody's seeing the exact same thing in all the beaches, they kind of recognize that that's the phone post. That's the There's one other reason that I do kind of like to keep them at that height, and it's because of the string that's running between them. If the posts are lower, the string kind of runs behind the signs and it makes it hard to adjust the tension on the signs. So I do like to keep them at that standard height, but it's something that we could explore. We can, you know, try and look for a different post. I actually, in preparation for this, I was looking at lumber, and it is kind of hard to find a shorter or it's hard to find a 6-foot post. Let me put it that way. A 6-foot post that's about the same size. So if we did move to a shorter height, we'd have to cut them off. So if anyone wants to volunteer to help me cut those off, okay, you've got it. You've got a saw. Okay, it's something that we can look at.
What about the strings? To me, when they finally went up, it impacts the balance between protecting the and the aesthetic beauty. Jonathan's heard me say this before, as has Ingrid Miller, is you walk out there and there's just sign, and strings connect them. If somebody's going to ignore the sign, that same person's going to ignore the strings. The strings, unless you're putting a wall-to-wall fence out there, people, you know, we have had, for the most part, people respect small, this high off the ground signs that stay off the dunes. It would be so nice, as hard as we work to preserve that land, to have preserved the aesthetic value.
So there are different options. Some people have said to me, could you do the string we think is pretty minimal. Just from my experience, you know, working on different beaches, we do think that the string really makes a difference to people remaining out of the posting. I know there are always people who, no matter what, are going to do it. But we do think that the string really helps. So it's something that, at least for right now, I would like to, you know, see us do, but it's always something that we can look at.
Any additional questions? Thank you so much. Look forward to working with you. Hey, folks, the presentation, I think we need to take the next step, and I think the memorandum of understanding is something that's coming more permanent. Is there any reason the board would have issues with that understanding, that document?
The memorandum of understanding that we got within the last 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
That's the one that was.
Yeah, that's a
City
draft.
talking like it wasn't ready.
No, it's a draft, but I think they need, some direction that we're on board with, the direction they're going.
It's a big question whether or not beach driving is going to be eligible.
I think we're at a point that it's out of our hands.
On that one. I did have one question though, is if we make it an overlay district, we don't have signs up and down the beach down here saying, okay, here's all the rules. Would you still, if it's governed by the ordinances of the town, would you need like the coastal land trust put up this sign with like 25 different rules? Are those necessary if they're the same as our ordinances?
I was gonna say, yeah, we are willing to talk about that, and I think we'd be willing to pay to make a sign and put it up. That's a good idea.
I think it's one sign and not
Yeah.
a lot.
And I think if it was called down to the key things, I think when you get so much verbiage, people aren't gonna read them. So, you know, the key big letters, stay off the dunes, no glass. Yeah. Thank you.
I don't want to go too far with the MOU until after Memorial Day weekend. I think we've got a whole host of issues coming our way with voters on the south end. And I don't know how all that's going to play out yet. It's going to be loud, and there's going to be a lot of backlash coming on that issue. So
Is there a time schedule that y'all need to have it executed?
Well, since we are working with you all on partnership to police the area, I think it's probably in our mutual interest to do it as soon as possible. So the understanding is there on both sides, and you already know where we're coming from, and so we need to understand where you're coming from, and then let's just formalize that. As far as voting on the weekends, you know, that's obviously it's been an activity. There's no issues with people coming up, pulling the boats up on the beach on the weekends. I think the new things are what Jonathan went through. So if he didn't cover that today, there won't be any like new prohibitions or new rules being implemented.
One question along that, especially on the same side, we have a lot of families that go down for swimming. And the more boats that are coming in, the less room they have. Is that something that we can regulate, at least set aside part of that area for swimming only? Or is that our role or a common role?
Right. I think that would be a joint role. That's not something that we've done on any of our other properties up and down the coast. Typically, it's it's first come first served, and you kind of fit in where you can, and those conflicts tend to be minimal in other places. So unless there's something unusual here, I don't know that we would initiate anything different.
What might be helpful is if you would help us support us in getting fish and wildlife. Memorial Day weekend, July 4th, go down there and give voting under the influence ticket. Enforce the, drunk drivers down there to make it undesirable. So the word will get out very quickly. Hey, go over to Masonboro, don't go to Lee Island. Because it is the proliferation of voters and alcohol consuming voters down there is.
Let's keep going, Doc. I think it.
I had the guy down with a big problem. We can't stop it. Well, we don't go vote on that. It's fine.
But we don't have to.
We haven't finalized. We're just basically to, I make a motion that we continue move forward to negotiate the MOU and sign it when it is presented to us and we've gone through it.
I'll think of that. Motion a second. All in favor?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice having a stay here. We're not in trouble. We did need a couple of permits.
Y'all don't want to stay, it's gonna get more fun.
Item nine, Parks and Recreation update. There's no meeting, there's no update.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Number 10, update from the planning board.
Wasn't on, I probably couldn't hear.
It's,
So the planning board met for the regular meeting on April 22nd at 10 a.m. They discussed your recommendation for the text amendment to section 16-53A10. They made a unanimous decision to remove that section as directed by the Board of Commissioners at the April 8th meeting. We are requesting that you guys set a public hearing for June 10th at the regular monthly meeting. And this is the same text amendment that we discussed last month. Just removing some of the duties from the planning board. To review with the town manager and other town officials and report as recommendations to the Board of Commissioners upon the extent, location, and design of all public structures and facilities, on the acquisition and disposal of public properties, and on the establishment of building lines, mapped street lines, and proposals to change existing street lines. However, in the absence of a recommendation from the planning board, the Board of Commissioners may, if it deems wise, after the expiration of 30 days from the date on which the question has been submitted in writing to the planning board for review and recommendation, or 30 days prior to any deadline stipulated by the Board of Commissioners, take final action.
Being the question.
Correct. It was recommended by Wes when the ordinances were updated. I think, what he said, 2019, maybe. And that board at the time didn't want to remove it. And then when we had to bring the public safety building to the planning board, it caused confusion because they're the final decision for major site plans, but also we had this. So it takes away some of the confusion and we only have one step.
It's a legal decision. The extent to which this board wants to have the advice of its planning board, its appointees, expertise, granted in a rather limited area. Yeah, I would expect we have too many, notwithstanding the hard work you're doing on the public safety building, I would suspect you could have too many more items come up on your agenda.
My recollection of that planning board meeting, which I watched, was that the planning board members had thought that they would be more involved in the process, that smaller group you heard us talking about, Nancy and Frank and me and Christina and so on. We spent 17 meetings meeting with comments about planning this building. And when we got to the end of that process, it went to the planning board as far as the site plan, which was correct. So all the details of what went on inside that building and little bitty details that we talked through in 17 meetings, I think they felt like they should have been more involved based on the language in that ordinance. And my opinion is that expectation was probably correct based on the language, but it would not have been the right thing for us to have had the planning board members in through that whole process. That just would have been too awkward. So I support taking this language out because it did cause a very clumsy planning board meeting.
I agree.
Is something either to the public hearing for a change if we wanted to wait it, or is it a board action?
It's in chapter 16.
I don't think it requires public hearing.
It's in chapter 16.
So it's in.
So it's in order to require it. Do we need to have a call for a public hearing?
Here, so does it have that excited?
We can have multiple public hearings at the same time. Has to be an individual. So.
I make a motion that we have a public hearing to remove this item from the planning board.
That for our June.
Powers and duties.
Our June regular meeting or June regular meeting?
Any special meeting.
We have to do notifications,
Yeah.
so we need time to do that. So we'll need to at least have the June meeting.
Okay,
Let's do it the June.
June meeting.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
June meeting.
Thank you.
Hard thing to kill it.
State of the, EIS committee. Williams. How was the trip to?
To Washington or Raleigh? Well, we did go to Raleigh yesterday. We had a good trip. We talked to, Representative Carson Smith, Senators Jackson, Lee, and, Lazaro. And so we had some key issues that we wanted to talk to them about. One of the things that we talked a lot about was oyster leasing. And Carson Smith is proposing to put forth a, temporary moratorium. Of course, he needs cooperation from Senator Jackson. Michael Lee was instrumental in that in New Hanover. So the area of the moratorium would be roughly from Howard's Creek up to just past the bend at the high rise at North Topsail Beach. And it would be a 1 to 2 year moratorium until we have some more study on what are the impacts of oyster leasing in our area. So that was a good advancement. And we also talked to the senators about that. But the other issues that we talked about, and I'm jumping ahead here because you asked me. But the other issues we talked about is continued funding for the stormwater funds that we get for Vitex removal. We brought that up, and they haven't funded that for 2 years, and we're still using money from a grant that we got. But we wanted some continued funding for coastal storm damage mitigation. We could also use those funds. We use those funds for our plantings, our dune plantings. Surf City used those funds for some of their stormwater projects that they've done. So we put our hat in the ring for that. We also wanted to make sure that they continue to fund the shallow draft inlet fund, which is what we use for our inlet maintenance down here. Surf City wants to make sure that they still have that pot of money in case they get that 50-year Corps of Engineers project. They have allocated some funds to help them with their match, and they always want to make sure that money doesn't disappear. So those are the big issues that we talked about yesterday. It was myself and Mayor Batts from Surf City, Town Manager Kyle Brewer, Connie Plettle from Mayor Pro Tem from North Topsail, and also Mayor Rick Grant were on that trip. So that's a brief update from what we did yesterday. Going back to BIS. The BIS team last met on April the 9th, and our next meeting will be on May the 21st. The BIS fund at our last meeting was $9.3 million. Still making progress toward the $12 million that we hope to have when we have our next inlet maintenance project, which is 2728. TR Coastal completed the quarterly sound survey and it's posted as of May the 4th. That sound survey still indicates that we've got a 6-foot depth in the connector channel between Banks Channel and the inlet. You just have to angle toward Topsail Creek, where that channel is. Just take a look at it on our website. In Topsail Creek, you know that problem area that we've always had, that's about 4 feet. So, so that could be a problem area in the future, just so you know. I did have a conversation with Chris Gibson that just want to make you aware of after our last budget session. He said, well, there's an excess of dredging capacity and we might, if we move our plan forward, be able to benefit. And I said, well, you better talk to town management about that because it's really out of my purview and really with our budget, the way it's set up, I don't think that's a positive opinion.
We don't need it right now, do we?
Well, I don't think so, in my opinion. But you know, you're taking a risk because if it's a 6-foot channel If in a year that becomes 4 feet, then there's gonna be a lot of, interest in hurrying up that process. But as it is today, I think that it's a business risk that you take.
What was it after the dredging the last time?
Oh, I think it was running 8 to 10 feet in there, you know? And so, but the channel's been pushed back toward, Copper Creek. And the area where they dredged is a point right now, but TI Coastal was required to dredge that footprint because that's where the permit was. They would like to change the permit going forward. Also, the War Management Task Team met, and a subcommittee, that's a subcommittee at GIS. Cal Brewer came down from Surf City, gave a really good presentation of some of the stormwater management they've done. They've used funds from the RCCP program, a Lassie grant, Goldie Fund, and North Carolina Emergency Management to get their program going. He gave us a presentation, and we have a copy of that presentation to help the Water Management Task Team. They used Adora as their engineer, same people we use for our water management field. And they had projects at 1814, 2201 on South Shore Drive, Roland Avenue, and Mecklenburg Avenue. So they've done a lot of work. We don't have to drive through flooded roads anymore. Have y'all noticed that? So that's a really good thing. Our next meeting is scheduled to be just before the BIS meeting, and I think Mayor Braxton has some information about how we might solve this problem with Rocky Mountain, or at least move that proposal forward. We also had a visit to Washington, D.C., the TISPC, and that was on April the 20th through the 23rd. Commissioner John Best and I went, along with Mayor Batts from Surf City and Cal Manager Brewer, and then Mayor Pro Tem Connie Plow. We met with Congressman Rouser's office. We met with Congressman Greg Murphy, staff from Senator Budd. We met with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Director, Brian Nesbitt, and had an opportunity to thank him for the grants for the South End, because they granted 2 different grants. I think it was $2 million between the 2 grants, one to the Division of Coastal Management and one to Ducks Unlimited. And then, yes, we have a picture of Teresa Batts at the Pentagon on the podium, where normally you get some press coverage. So they got to go to the Pentagon on that and talk about their 50-year project. And they also went to the Office of Management and Budget. So I think it was a pretty productive time. John, do you have anything to add on that?
But you covered it well. It just, what I learned was that money we're spending for our lobbying team to represent our interest in Washington seems to be money well spent. They are well versed and aggressive in pursuing our needs.
All right, so that's Warden Smith and the Ferguson Group on a national level, and Maynard Nixon on the state level. And we put in some numbers for the budget. There's a $3,200 increase from last year going forward for the next 2 years, which represents a 5% increase, and they hadn't gotten an increase for a couple of years, so that's for your consideration. That's all I got.
So I got kicked out of the buildings.
Well, we were threatened. Last year, you were going to the Corps of Engineers meeting and you couldn't get in because you didn't.
That's the way. I can't stay in the building.
Well, you didn't have one of the new IDs, and that was
What requires it?
we're there. Hey, thank you very much.
Really, I tried to sit in the lobby and they told me I had to leave. Thank you, William. Number 12, discuss, consider, and vote on the contract for public safety bill. Well, it looks like taking up. It's been a busy day. Get everything in order, and still there's some work to be done. And so, as Mr. Colligan said, it's probably the biggest contract that we've signed in forever. And so we want to be sure we're not mistaken.
We're there.
We're there. Just,
We got everything worked out. It's not only the biggest contract, but it'll be the biggest building at Topsail Beach by a lot.
Blame it on your lawyer.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the public safety building contract at $9,722,000. It was $9, but John and Frank and I agreed to throw that in, an even $9,722,000. And approve that the town manager may sign that document once the AIA document and amendment to it has completed legal review, and agreement on that legal review is in place.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board?
Any questions out there?
Yeah, this is important. So before we vote, if there's someone that has any comment or good. Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At 12A, that's gonna be, the parking, over at the tower, and, Katina, what was,
Yeah, so, with the, public safety building, beginning construction, it was supposed to begin construction somewhere around June. That was the estimated date. As part of all of the meetings that we had had with the Public Safety Building Committee and Thomas Construction, we wanted to find a location for contractors that were working on the project to be able to park and not be on the streets and all of that, especially during our downtown area during the season. So, as you probably know, we cleared off the lots that we own across the street and made that available for parking for Thomas Construction. Because of some permitting things that we're still working out, construction is now not set to begin until around the beginning of September. So there was conversation about potentially using those two lots, now that we already have the parking lot created, for a paid parking lot during this season to, collect some of the revenue, until Thomas Construction and their contractors need it. So the conversation, led me to contact our third-party parking vendor, Auto Connect. And we are able to implement that as paid parking for the season, if that is the preference of the board. It is doable. We would just have to basically put up some signs, just as we've done with our other lots. And those could be done fairly easy, probably in a 2-week period. Of course, if that's the direction of the board, we would need to vote on times of the lot for paid parking enforcement, and also the fee, the daily fee, hourly fee. And that's pretty much it. We are planning on putting the fence up there. That's already been scheduled, but not going to be completed until around the beginning of June, I think around 3rd of June. And we are still waiting for our DOT permit, but the only difference for that is there will be a concrete or asphalt apron that goes up onto the property, but the property itself, the lot itself, will still remain gravel.
I noticed the curb stops over there, they look like caterpillars. They're very close. Could we not have them consistent throughout the town? And maybe not the caterpillar looking ones?
I've already had that conversation, because as soon as I saw them, I said, it looks like a circus over there. It's black and white. They're not very nice looking, but, they were ordered, basically, they're much cheaper, and
They look it.
the contractor that was supposed to be putting in the concrete ones, we couldn't worked out a deal, and that's what we ended up with. I didn't realize they were gonna be there until they were delivered.
Can we utilize the parking lot before the aprons are paved?
Yes, you can.
Can we do anything to make the curb stops not as ugly?
I can talk with, Tom, with our Public Works Director, and see what we can do, paint them, or, I think they're also made of a little bit of a different material, so they're easier to maneuver, with Public Works. But that's certainly a conversation that we can have to see how we can make those look a little nicer.
I do think if it is paid parking, the trash issue may disappear. I think that'd be Yeah, it should.
Well, yes, they're ugly. I look at them every day.
Aren't they ugly?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't understand why it's straight in parking either.
If,
I can tell you because I've been doing this for 40 years. Straight in parking, you're backing up, you're gonna hit the car behind you. It's more likely that that'll ever happen in straight in parking.
yeah, we did increase the spacing between the back of cars, so the travel lane is
I'm
twice.
telling you, 40 years I've been doing it.
I thought Tom said that we were required to put them,
That's what
we actually wanted them in a dining
It
room.
ain't on DOT.
It wasn't our decision.
You're the smartest. That's why we got to
DOT
stop like on the bridge.
curb stops too. I would recommend that we move forward with Charter Day parking, but in deference to what the screen said, that we not do that until after the fence is up. And make sure that it provides sound areas. And I would be consistent with the hours and the charges at the other ocean front accesses. That was.
Have a motion to second. All in favor?
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, but you already voted, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, we can rescind a vote. But
So,
not before.
so what's the big rush to start the paid parking if you would have to wait for the fence to get up and you don't know when the construction's gonna start? So you're gonna start paid parking and then be mid-season and say, oops, sorry, we're gonna yank that away from you. That's what I don't
I
understand.
think if we should close the lot, if we keep the lot open, it's gonna be random parking that we have no control over.
Nobody parks there now.
Well, let's not open.
Right, so why do we have to open it? That's my question. Are we that struck that we need that money? We have to open it for 2 months.
Budget's tight.
And why have it sitting there not generating revenue? And we do know it will be August before they need that. So
Do we?
you're looking, is that correct, Christina?
At least.
Yeah.
Probably the end of August or maybe even September.
So it would just sit there. We spent the money to put the gravel in July, June, July, and August, and not generating any revenue.
Like you said, you already voted.
I mean,
You already voted. Doesn't matter.
We did get a no tax increase budget, it's gonna be recommended. We need this money.
I kind of,
Yeah,
I
well,
think,
our values went down, so.
if I remember correctly,
We don't know which tag is there now.
if I remember correctly, he spent $30,000 for the lot, create the lot, so we would get some of that back in this summer, and then we won't get anything from it for a year while they build the building, so that's the rationale. It wasn't even in the budget to build the lot.
We have a question here, whether we want to rescind the vote or stand by the vote.
I make a motion to send out a vote.
Motion and second, stand by the vote. All in favor?
There you go.
Thank you, and I'll see what I can do about those bumpers.
They could be stolen. Who would want?
That's on camera.
If I get one.
Okay. 13, discuss, consider, and vote on the text amendment for uncontrolled growth of food. That. There it is.
So as requested by Commissioner Thomason at the April 8th Board of Commissioners meeting during board comments, staff has reviewed section 10-54, uncontrolled growth, accumulation declared public nuisance 1. Staff reviewed several other town, county ordinances and is making the attached recommendation. So to section 1, it currently reads the uncontrolled growth of noxious weeds or grass in excess of 24 inches, causing or threatening to cause a hazard detrimental to the public health or safety. We are changing it to the uncontrolled growth of noxious weeds or grass on a developed lot in excess of 12 inches, causing or threatening to cause a hazard detrimental to the public health or safety. Developed lots do not include areas which customarily have growth, such as forested areas, thicket, and or underbrush, provided that SEA shall not be considered noxious weeds or grass and shall not be subject to the provisions of this subsection, and provided further that this section should not apply to growth of any kind. On, and then there are other parts that we're not changing.
Everybody understand? Just
What
trying-
is your fine if they go plus fine?
Yeah.
Well, at first, it's of course, we go out, send a certified letter, and they have 10 days to correct it. And then I believe the civil penalty, this is section 10, so I'm not familiar with what the penalties are for that. It's probably $50.
I mean, we have an ordinance, but you don't have, you don't have some way to.
We can find them, and you can force, you can cut it and build it.
Christina, in the fee schedule, I believe we listed a fine or.
Is it, violation in?
Yes. But it's down towards the bottom of the.
I think it's 50.
There are
That's
tiers to
administrative
it.
amendment.
If there's a fresh fee, and then if it happens again, it increases, I believe. Or did I just leave it at a flat 50? Is
Yeah, I'm only saying.
that on the fee schedule or is that in?
What's the pleasure of the board?
Accept this ordinance change. as presented.
I second it.
First and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Wait, Mr. Crockett wants to say something. I didn't know.
Staff's having a difficult time enforcing this ordinance. Its ambiguities are such. Developed lot does not include areas which customarily have growth, such as forested areas, thicket and or underbrush. Every lot in Topsail Beach customarily has thicket and
Says they do not include those areas.
It does not, okay, but somebody's gonna try to argue whether or not that exemption applies to them and you get hung up on that. I understand the exemption. To help me out, about a lot that abuts the C4 conservation district. C4 is South End, correct?
Right.
Okay, so this would only apply to lots that actually touch that conservation, not the lot that's next to it.
And then those are, I think those are the ones that are excluded.
Yes.
Right, that's what I'm trying to make sure I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. You're gonna hear from the lots that are next to the lot that abuts the C4 district. Hear for that.
I think the biggest problem we have right now, because I brought this up, is until a lot is 2 feet deep in weeds, we cannot notify a property owner and say, your grass is overgrown. And it was an attempt to make it level that we talked about 6 inches, and Stephanie said it can grow 6 inches in a week. A level that is acceptable, but not so deep. So we've already got that. It's really a change of the acceptable height.
But it's also,
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand the wording. Clearly, a developed lot is something that's got a house. Okay, so what you're trying to do is maybe notify somebody that got weeds on their house, on the lot where their house is, and it's more than 12 inches. Got it. But developed lots do not include areas which customarily have such growth.
It's awkward wording.
What I'm gonna say is, they're gonna say, I've been in this house, for 50 years. This is how it's been like this for 50 years, and now you're jumping on me? That's not customarily, I don't know what is.
I think the intent was a lot that had previously been cleared. We were trying to exempt lots that have never been developed as compared to a lot that had been developed, whether it has a house on it or not. I think that was the
It is
intent.
trying to say a development doesn't include allowed overfront.
I get it, but having,
So we
They have to
don't
recently
enforce
go-
it as forested areas and things.
I don't feel strongly about this, okay, but I'm coming against the background that we've just recently dealt with, for instance, the Helen Lane situation, okay? Good luck in knowing whether or not something has been previously cleared before. I'm in litigation right now on something similar where, you know, CAMA has a rule against dredging if you can't prove that it's never been dredged before. Can you imagine having to provide proof about whether or not a particular boat access way along the Intracoastal Waterway has never or ever been dredged before? Now, it does not take long for very involved and thick undergrowth to take place, even though it's been cleared before. I just think, do what you want is fine, but I got a feeling it's gonna be a year from now that Stephanie's gonna be miserable.
And we need a rewrite.
I'm just saying, just be ready.
You ready?
I mean, it's basically the way I enforce it now. Maritime forest area, we really don't, and that's where most of the growth like that is. And we have.
And you have a maritime overlay district.
That's what I'm talking about.
And you know, you could maybe use that as an exemption or something like that. That's something you can sink your teeth into. It's there, right?
They already have certain rules as far as, you know, not cutting things in the setbacks and only the developed area can be cut. I mean, and trees have to be a certain size or, you know, we have to get involved and they can't cut them. I mean, there are already things in place there that this won't even apply to because of the overlay district.
Right, yeah, I think it'd be helpful. Right now, this thing says when the bank not developed line is developed. Okay, that customarily, you know, language, wouldn't it be easier just to say what the developed line is?
Yeah.
Revisit the, under consideration of attorney, what would y'all like to do?
David?
They would bring it back, yeah.
Do you have suggested language that you would prefer we use?
No. You have suggested language. You're gonna be the
I
one-
used it, that's why I'm asking you for language.
Yeah, but I think it's. Please be ready. If this is not a problem, you're not gonna need pushback about it.
It's just for that thing to be positive from what.
Yeah, undeveloped lot.
The point is, nobody in this room has a lawn that is over 12 inches high. Nobody. But there are some people that are not in this room.
Yeah.
That do. And we need some help. So that's what we're at.
What if you changed it, Mr. Coggins, to undeveloped lots? Include areas which customarily have growth such as forest areas, thicket and underbrush.
Undeveloped lots.
Right.
That's what it's saying.
Yeah.
Includes, that would be better.
Okay.
I don't look at much. Remember also that it doesn't take, for instance, can't recall if in our, chapter 6, you know, the building and in the zoning, if there's a definition of development. But I know Campbell's raised, okay, it doesn't take a whole heck of a lot for this, something we call a development. You could have a fence, just solely a fence on a lot. That makes it a developed lot. Because a fence is developed. Is an example. A bird feeder on a post is a structure, you know, as any kind of structure that's on a lot makes it is a form of development.
Gazebo.
That's a developed lot.
Yeah.
What if we just change that to developed lots undeveloped lots includes areas instead of developed does not include.
That works for me.
That work for you?
Undeveloped lots.
All right,
Let's just work on it a little more.
I mean, do we want to work on it further or do we want to use the language?
change that language and I think that stops it.
It just goes back to the old saying they teach us first week in law school, is that one person's loophole is another person's fundamental right.
Okay, I need a. How do y'all want it?
Yeah. I make a motion, we move forward with it, with that tweak in the
The
language.
amendment.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Okay?
It passed.
You gotta have it.
Thank you.
You're gonna have to put your graph.
I do.
This next one, very, interesting item that we've been working on for several months. And, I think it's a great decision based on how our communication is changing over our lifespan. So, John, we will lead this charge?
You want me to?
Sure.
Okay. Yes, Mayor. So unknown to me, 6 months ago, we have a big piece of steel in the backyard called a monopole. Not sure I'd ever heard of a monopole before, but we own one and we manage it and we lease it to telecommunication companies. Is that correct?
Yeah.
It's a town asset that I think all of us feel has a lifespan. We can't put a date on that lifespan, but we can all agree that Elon Musk has already put up the greatest satellite telecommunications network the world has ever seen, which supersedes the eventual need for a monopole. Does that make sense? So we learned that this town asset still has a real present value to it. It can be sold to a third party that buys monopoles in towns around the country. They buy, sell, trade them, and they're still very interested in buying our monopole. So we reached out and did our research. We hired, I use that word lightly, we hired a consultant to take us through the process of this niche category of business owners that deal in monopoles. And we went out and advertised our monopole to everyone in the industry. And we now have a letter of intent that makes it real, that monetizes the real value of the monopole at $2.35 million.
What do we make right now?
We make about $100,000 a year on the leases. So you multiply that out, we see how we can capture a real return on our investment. So we have a lot, and we need to decide whether we want to move ahead with a purchase agreement that clarifies that offer. And if we get a purchase agreement and we all agree to the terms of that agreement, that will initiate a state process called an upset bid process, where we go out and advertise the $2.35 million offer that we have received in writing and tell everybody in the world that they have the right to come back and give us a higher bid of 10% more. If that happens, the bidder is required to submit a deposit to the town. And that bid will keep rolling in 10-day increments until we don't receive any more upset bids. So the price could go higher. I think, given the fact that a sizable deposit is required to play the game, that we probably won't get any more bids. But the $2.35 million bid is real. So we have to decide whether we wish to proceed and sell the pole.
What does it take to take the pole down? Is that a quick process?
No, it stays there. They own the pole.
So we're not
and ground.
losing that structure.
Right, that stays there.
They're buying
We
all
own the
the
dirt. We will continue to own the dirt. They will own the pole.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
What about the
And
communication?
but they keep putting neon signs on it.
But what about the communications gear that are owned by other companies that are on there? Will the leases be part of that also?
They own the leases.
So they'll own the leases also.
Everything will continue as is, and they want to buy it. And it's amazing.
And what, okay, so they buy it for 2.3 million. What are they getting out? The money from the leases, I guess, right?
I think they combine it in packages,
They aggregate location.
so it moves them to have more inventory so they can sell it as a group. And the other thing is, within 180 days after we satisfied with the bid, they give us that money in cash.
What about the land?
The land stays with us.
What about the land under it? Is
It stays
the
with
town
us.
still on it?
We only grant them an easement.
And that pole is steel, am I correct? And we're right now in charge of maintenance on it. And so this will get us out from under that. And there will be a point that it requires maintenance. And my understanding is that's very expensive.
And they would be
They
responsible
would,
for that.
we will get out from under that liability.
It seemed to me that there's a couple of questions here. If it was sold, would it be sold with conditions of future uses or modifications? That's one thing. Would they be able to extend the pole? Would be able to extend the scope? The other thing is, would there be a requirement to keep it in a state of repair so it does not become unsightly if it became unusable and they walked away from it? So those are just a couple of considerations that you may want to consider in your contracting language.
Because the building usually stays with the land. So if they walk, town still owns the pole.
We own everything.
Is there any nefarious purpose for which they can use this pole? I'm sorry, it's the Presbyterian in me.
Our corporate.
What does our attorney say in terms of future liabilities, Steve?
Well, start with the present. What we're talking about is a letter of intent, not a binding contract. It's to acknowledge the fact that there's an offer and therefore trigger the upset bid process. At some point, it has to, if it's going to go forward, it has to move from the mere letter of intent process to an actual contract. That's when the real negotiations get down. Very, for instance, the good points that Ray just brought up on that. And these here, like what happens if the lease is terminated, with the town's responsibility and cost then. There are many bridges yet to be crossed.
Yeah, if you really step back and look at our communication devices, 20 years ago, you had a flip phone and a bag phone. And look at it now. And so what's going to happen in the next 10 years? Hopefully we'll be around to see, but I don't know. Okay, what's board's pleasure?
Make a motion that we move forward with the monopole sale process. My understanding is that we still will have to approve it and negotiate it before it is ever finalized, but at least we can get the process in motion.
Second. Motion to second. All in
You'll have to
favor?
just make sure you approve the resolution.
And we approved the resolution.
Just want to make sure I was in there.
You want to add the third story now on the.
Yes, sir.
No.
And before you have to vote, it is good also to keep in mind that like most all the house, buyers can be doing a substantial due diligence period. It's not a done deal. This thing's gonna be sold.
Right. That's in the LOI.
We have a motion to second on the floor. All in favor? The deal. Not yet. Okay, next is, I'm here. Our we need to set a public hearing for the 26-27 budget. We have been working on this budget, squeezing every penny we have, and I think we've come to a realization that we've got a good budget right now. So, we think Nancy gets the job done and doesn't stick us out on the liability. I'll go back to Connie and don't want to explain any parts of it, or you just want to set the hearing?
Well, I mean, same as we do every year, we're ready. We have got this thing finally nailed down, so we're going to, hopefully set the public hearing for the June meeting, and we will have the budget available for public, inspection prior to that.
And they have been working on 2 budgets. Yeah.
Four.
Yeah. I do think, I'll be the first to say it, there's no increase. So we held the line, and I commend Honey and Christina for
And the board.
Y'all did heavy lifting.
So to be clear,
Mhm.
if the county or the state passes what they're trying to pass so that our values stay the same, the tax rate will be exactly the same. But if the new values go into effect, the 26 reevaluation, what we've created is a revenue neutral budget. But keep in mind, if your house doubled in value, your taxes may go up, and if your house didn't go up as much, you may actually pay less in taxes. So it's not, it can't be exactly the same because of the reevaluation, but what the town will take in will be the same. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah. So, need a motion to set the public hearing for the June meeting?
Second.
And a motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
That's it. The next is 15A, and it to do with Marina and activities that are going on there that we've never had to deal with it because of the change in how things are being done out in the water. There's more people that are going on boat tours, and a lot of times they're coming to this ramp and our docks to load and unload. And it's competition. It's a commercial business operating out of our marina. And how do we deal with that? I don't know if it's something we can deal with or not, but I just wanted to open up for a discussion and see what the appetite of the board is to move forward. Anyone have any? I think, hey, you want
I think
you're not gonna say anything?
I mean, I have some things. Here's the hard part for me, because I run a charter business. So I already talked to a lot of these charter guys last year. And what happened was they thought I was coming at them as a charter boat captain, which I wasn't, right? And that there was a little bit of bad blood between a couple of us, right? I'm coming as a Topsail Beach resident, right? And so we have 2 within throwing distance, Loop Point and Surf City boat ramps. Those are both run by the state. And they're free of charge to put in. They built, maintain parking lots, everything under the state, because that's paid for by your registrations and fees and everything else, right? We're in a different situation. We got this, we paid for this. That used to be Bush's outboard marine repair. And we got it, and I sent something to Nancy earlier. People probably don't know it, but the town of Topsail Beach got that under eminent domain when they got it. They had a higher bid on it, and Butch Parrish or whatever put eminent domain, said a town needs to have it, and they got it. They paid $2.2 million for it, and we're required for the upkeep, the gravel, we put in a new ramp. The old ramp wasn't steep enough. People were dropping off the ledge. That's a teeter boat system, $85,000 they put that in. And what I'm seeing is our fee schedule has changed for boat slips. They're coming up to regular boat slips. I applaud everybody. The marina looks really good. And we do a good job of getting people in those slips for either monthly or weekly during the summer. But if you're a commercial business, part of your business plan should be having somewhere to pick up, and it just feels like we're getting taken advantage of. And it didn't bother me much really until I saw everybody in this town being always talking about money and fiscal responsibility and paid parking and how we're going to lower taxes. So if we're starting to do it 95% of other places in the town, we need to be more fiscally responsible there. We're missing an opportunity. And the second thing is people are taking advantage. The fee schedule seems pretty good on everything else, but if people are dropping off and picking up there, I would just call it a use tax. They're using it more than anyone else.
What tax?
Use, right?
Yeah, gas, just like.
It's a direct tax. So all you'd have to do is, first of all, the town should be considering liability, because I rent from the breezeway. I run my charter business out of the breezeway. But the most important thing, I pay for that slip quite a bit of money, but the most important thing that she wants is through my charter boat insurance is their address to be on my liability, to make sure that if anything happens, somebody walking through their property to get on my boat, that's the pickup spot and that they're covered. So that's a minimum. And I mean, you can talk amongst yourselves what the right price is, but all you got to do, if you want to just know what average prices are around town, just look at what we charge for a boat slip per month. And then you can extrapolate that. Right, it's $700 a month at our boat ramp. So I've heard some people say that it's it was with grant money, so it's it's public. It is public, but that doesn't mean you can't have a fee schedule there, and you can organize it a little better. Those 4 slots that are out on the road, there's exactly 10 parking spots, and there's 10 slips. Those should be dedicated for people renting the slips.
So where are the people parking? Like the people he's picking up?
I've heard on the road, some people say that that's right away parking. They can't do anything about it. They sure can, but right, including those ones on the road, and the other ones, there's exactly 10 spots and 10 slips. So I didn't really want to get involved. That's why I was trying to put it in other people's hands and see if it made sense to anybody else but me, but it makes complete sense to me. Right. And now that I'm on here saying I'm probably going to get some bad press either, but I'm coming to you as a person from Topsail Beach, and we seem to be tight. We're getting tight with every penny around here, and we're missing an opportunity there, because what I know about Topsail Beach, and it's always been the case, there's more boats than there are boat spots. And we can be fiscally responsible, and we can have a fair price. That doesn't mean, stick it to them, but, anyway.
It could be if people are having a commercial fee rent. With that, we already have.
No, we don't.
They don't use it. A lot of times they come in from over there.
Right.
Yeah, they aren't putting the boats in, and
Just letting people all along.
yeah,
They were supposed to pulling up.
Jane's not here. She told me today that these people are paying a ramp fee.
They do have a permit.
Commercial and.
There's not a different fee for commercial and residential, but they do have a ramp permit, which is the only permit that we have currently.
but they aren't using our ramp for the most part. Living on the Sound, if any others of you on the Sound want to speak up, the proliferation of boat tours is getting worse and worse. The size of them, bigger boats. The music, there's one that goes by music full blast, and it's gonna become more of a problem, in my opinion, if we don't do something that feels like, smells like, controlling it. And these people aren't putting the boats in over here. They're in Surf City or at the state park, but they're using the marina, which the town paid for, the residents paid for it through taxes, to pick up and drop off their fee-paying passengers. So we're basically serving as a pickup drop-off point for their commercial business. They make money, our resources used, and we make nothing.
And you're liable.
Liability is a question. Teach the three places, I think you stated that there's a point that the state.
Appointed and Hampstead, there's,
Surf City has one.
yes.
But are they the kind of facility that you can simply drop off passengers?
You can, the state just requires you can drop off and pick up, you just can't change any money on land at any of those for charters. They're able to pick up charter passengers at the boat ramps, yes.
But the people down here aren't gonna drive over to Hempstead
Well,
and
that's
get
what I'm trying to
chartered and
understand.
do the.
Why is the state in Surf City, not using that as?
It's not theirs.
Because they don't, the boat leaves there empty, comes over here and picks up people and takes them on these tours.
It's wildlife refuge, right? It's not known for.
They're on wildlife.
Yeah. It's owned by the state. Those ramps are built.
Right, and I'm just saying, why isn't the state looking at it as a revenue source? Just
It's something, it's just like a state park. They get exact revenue from boat registrations and
Nobody's charged to use the ramps.
Right, so, but I take it that the market that serves that they're using Bush Marine for, their market, the people that they serve are different from those that go to Surf City or state.
well, it's just smaller. It's closer to Lee Island. It's closer to the inlet. It's things that are more popular. If you're a fishing guide and you want to go out the ocean, you're exactly 1 3/4 miles from the entrance to the ocean. Surf City's 5.5 miles to the ocean. If you do it every day, that's a lot of miles.
We're convenient for the boat captains, we're convenient for the passengers.
Well, I wanted to amplify this, just make sure, survive the legal challenge. I'm satisfied based on what I'm hearing, there's a rational basis for, treating commercial, operations like that distinct from private, if you were recreational ones that would survive the legal challenge of that.
Keep in mind that they're not parking at Bush Marina.
Just let it go on.
Right, and keep in mind that these people are already here on vacation, paying the rental market that's 80% of every house in Topsail Beach. They're in our restaurants, they want something to do. They're finding these tours online and they're hopping on and they're hopping off. So not that anyone has, but I mean, they're not freeloaders. They're paying rent, paying occupancy tax. They're eating in the restaurants.
The boat captain's the freeloader, not the paying
Yeah.
customers.
But
And
how do you put a plan together where what are you gonna nab them when they come to the docks?
You're just gonna sit, it's like, okay,
How are you gonna collect it?
it's like our rentals. At the beginning of the season, they have to come, fill out their application or come pay their fine. And they can have a sticker to put on their boat that says they've paid it or whatever.
Well,
And that'd be easy for Jamie, or if they go with that sticker on the boat.
have you asked her? Have you asked Jamie?
we're bringing this up for discussion. She would be asked.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that,
Just ask him. He's asked Jamie.
no, I haven't had any, but what I'm just saying is that like you said, like, we're talking about money. And we're letting a good source of income go away. That's not going to hurt.
So
The local resident.
I have a question, and I asked Jamie this question today, and if the commercial charter people pay the boat ramp certificate for the year, doesn't that give them a right to use that dock? Even if they don't put in and take out that?
There's
That's
a
very different.
whole,
That's what all the people who use the ramp use. The dock that the boat ramp people use is the dock that they're using.
They put their boat in, they get in it and they leave.
Right,
This is a boat coming from somewhere else,
right.
picking up people on the pier and
Oh,
leaving.
I understand that.
And one of the fears that I see is the more these boat captains can come in here and go, hey, I can go make money down at Topsail doing tours. Pretty soon, we're gonna have 15 or 20 of them coming in there. And if we don't now look at that and either A, capture some revenue or have a way to manage it, it's gonna run us down in a way we do not need.
Yeah, the concern that I've seen Jamie seem to have, and again, she's not here, so I don't think we should make a decision tonight. Was that there, a lot of times they drop off at 6 a.m. or after 5 o'clock. Nobody's there to make sure. that
But
they
if you have a season, how many, there are like 6 boat captains doing this, so it just says they have to have a season.
Are we gonna cap it, or can it be 10 or 20 season passes for all the, there are a lot of issues we haven't talked through, I
But
think.
that's why we're discussing.
Yeah, I understand.
Can you cap limit the number because of the capacity of the marina?
But there is a capacity driven, but they're just stopping.
We're not capping the number of people who use the ramp.
Well, there's no question that that much could increase in use. You've got significant appreciation wear and tear on the facility.
That's what I.
But also, Mr. Attorney, if we did that as part of the contract, we could have it, where they'd be liable for any damages that were done for the people coming aboard that boat that got hurt on the, going out into that boat.
Yes.
But then we would, but like right now, we'd be liable.
My guess is a similar vision with ramp.
Likely, I can't.
But I've never seen that. That actually, the whole thing actually predates.
Yeah. We've been using the same one for a long time.
Well, a while back, the commercial, they have liability, but I guess they would have to list us as an additional.
We have no control over that because we have no relationship with them. They just come in, pick up, drop off and leave.
That's the hard part of enforcement.
Right.
I think,
Enforcement.
it will self-enforce itself. The people who are doing it will see somebody new coming in and they don't have a permit and they will enforce it, I would think.
But I think if you had a permit and you had some people that didn't, if you had to have a permit, and you didn't have a permit, we made that fine high enough that they would wish they had that permit.
Thank you, Dr. Joe.
There is a paragraph on here about, that they certify they have their own proper insurance for boat ownership and operation, and that they'll be using the boat ramp at their own risk and will hold the town harmless in case of accident or injury that may result from improper use of the ramp. That's it.
So they promise they have it.
But they're promising the boat captain that they're holding us on the. Okay.
No, this is for our ramp.
The boat captain is saying, I've got insurance.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Let's have comments from the outside.
I think we're probably talking about two different things. One is a dockage fee where you come up to the dock and get your customers. But you also have a number of guides that use Bush Marine. They launch their boats there. So you have two different scenarios in my mind. The pickup and delivery, like Commissioner Thomason says, but also you have the guide business that launches their boats there. And it seems like you want to take advantage of both.
Would say that, and again, we're just having conversations
Yeah.
tonight, so obviously there's a lot to talk about, to discuss, but typically, the few charter boats that do come up there, they actually come to the ramp. They don't necessarily, dock at the end and then pick people up. They come into the ramp, the people come down the pier at the ramp and get on the boat there, and then they take off. So, I don't know that we would want them docking per se even if it's short term. I don't know that we want that because that's
Just
where
pick
we got
up,
a lot
drop
of
off.
damage
Yeah.
with the dock at the end. But again, that's all up for conversation, just something to think about.
I know fishing, there's a lot that don't use our dock. They come in from Surf City. And then also to have, there's a few that have, piers that are private piers, that they come up. They pick them up, instead of picking up their home, they come up here and pick them up here.
How do we move forward with discussion?
Well, that's what we're talking about. We can have staff take a look at other ramps or other times to see if they have the same issue. And then maybe how do they, distinguish between, how the enforcement? I think that's where it's gonna be a problem. And,
And can we limit the number of permits we're gonna
I
charge?
think based on the,
I think we can.
You don't have that deal.
I said 15. If we don't manage it, it's gonna go to 15.
No, I'm saying if businesses are allowed to use our marina as a free source of picking up and dropping off their revenue. There were, I don't know of any except for 8 Tucker 2 years ago. And now there are at least 6 in the last 2 years. So there will be more and more, and they aren't local. They are just down here to make money. And I don't know that they care about us. I don't know that they care if they drive by the end of your pier with their radios blaring full blast. You hear them when they go by? Dunderville, Commissioner Dunderville.
Yeah.
I would just say this. This is a town dock. You can make any recommendation that you're scared to make a cap. If the town of Topsail Beach, the council up there that we elected wanted to make a cap, you can. Right? That's a part of owning that dock. This is a public boat ramp. That means you cannot discriminate against anybody using it, but you sure can make rules about its use. It's the same as a park that we've been talking about, how the park gets used. If you can have times on courts and you can, it's the exact same thing. It's owned by the town and you can make your rules and regulations applying to that piece of property and a fee schedule. And that fee schedule includes slips, putting in the boat ramp, and charter boats, if you choose.
Selling ice and the
And
price of
selling
ice.
ice.
we have under the LWCF.
We're done with the payments, but we're still under the grant
It's like 20 years.
stipulations. 25. Yeah.
Does it have
There's 3
restrictions?
different grants.
You have to maintain it for open to the public, which is strict. So, but we can charge.
We can't charge you, I know you can't charge a different fee, for certain, give certain people different fees. So we'll have to look into that a little bit more, but that's something I've written down here to look into.
Did I hear that we used to rent slips to commercial boats? So we banned that or something?
We did back in the day, it was a jet skiing business that we rented a slip to, and they kept a couple of their jet skis there, but we just determined that that wasn't what we wanted to do. It caused some issues, and so we no longer rent slips to commercial boats. That's just recreation boats. But we don't differentiate with the ramp passes at this time.
I make a motion, we have the town staff look at it, discuss it with the marina staff and see if you have a recommendation.
Second. A motion second. All in favor? Good. Keep that one there.
We'll bring this back to the June
Yeah.
Was it that bad?
That's all there. I'm like,
Okay.
that's it.
Manager and the treasurer.
You want to hear that?
I do.
Well, actually, I don't have much to say. It's all in my written report, so I'm not going to go over that again, but I do want to mention 2 things. First of all, Public Works Director Tom Hedrick, he's not here tonight, he usually is, but he is in Charlotte right now at the Rural Water Convention, and he is being recognized with an award, the J.A. Younts Award, for excellence in water service. So we're very proud of him. He has been a wonderful addition to this town. He has done some great things, and so we just really want to congratulate him on that honor, well deserved. And the second thing I do want to mention is, I'm sorry, everybody's gone. Next Tuesday, the state will be holding an event at the South End. It'll be 1 p.m. is the event. We're going to have a lot of cars probably parked in the South End lot for that event. So that lot on Tuesday will be closed until the event is over. So just keep that in mind that the south end lot will be closed on Tuesday, until sometime late in the afternoon, probably around 2:30, 3 o'clock, when that event is over. And of course, there'll be more communication coming out about that. That's all I have unless you
Well, we'll be
guys.
charging for that lot. We're gonna use that lot for that.
Yeah, we're not gonna.
I was wondering, but I mean, you said you were closing. I mean, I didn't know we were charging for that.
No, we're gonna let them use it. That's, it's basically the handover, event from Coastal Land Trust to the state. And, again, that is gonna be open to the public and we'll have, more communication about that.
Sure thing. Things been rather apparent. Over the past 24 hours to, these boards, what I've been working on. Say so. Public comments, anyone? We're doing it from here or up there. Either way, it's short. It's the end of the meeting.
I just want to take a minute to talk about fiscal year 26-27 budget development. Just take this opportunity to remind everybody that the number one duty of a town is to take care of the health and safety of its residents. And to do that, you need to make sure that your public works, your police and fire are adequately staffed, adequately trained, and adequately equipped. So as you develop your proposed budget, I hope you took into consideration the capital requests and the staffing requests of all those agencies, particularly the fire department, which is near and dear to my heart, to make sure that their needs are addressed and they have the equipment, supplies, people that they need to serve us, to give us the level of service that we deserve and we need to live safely in this community. So, if you haven't looked, we've made significant cuts to their requests. I'd like you to reconsider them and think about the percentage of budget that storing those cuts to the original requests would mean, probably fractions of a penny to make it all happen, to make the whole request that they put in. I'm sure their requests were pared down and reasonable to begin with, knowing the fiscal tendency of developing this budget for this next fiscal year. So, and I'd love to talk to you all individually about, especially fire department stuff, maybe some of the requests. Tell you what I think fire department needs to be funded based upon the needs and requests of the fire chief.
It's just as for information, I think after our budget, and John Best had a good suggestion, that we gather for a workshop to look at our long range needs. And that would include a lot of what you described and give us time to be able to set money aside instead of, as John said, it's the gotcha program.
Plans are great as long as you stick to them, you develop them.
That's what we've been trying to do, and we have to identify what the plan is.
Sure. And I got some thoughts.
I think that's what we need.
I just got this last minute about, I don't know if we can get all that out. I guess I will be representing people that like to drive on the beach and fish. And that felt a little bit like a gut punch to me. I knew the last few years coming in here requesting us to keep driving on the beach for the last 4 years, that one day this was going to happen. But the way it happened, I would have never guessed it in a million years. And it feels like, you know, the old saying, one good deed goes no good deed goes unpunished, because I thought we did a really good job and the town came together to save that south end down there, and there's a cost. And I'm not conspiratorial at all, but it feels a little like a trick, right? Because I mean, I served a little bit in the military and I know accountability is everything. For me, I'd like to know who dropped the ball. You know, does it make any difference now? No, but maybe we could save another town from missing out on something good, because I had asked Harrison, I'd asked through the whole thing is when this turnover happens, is there going to be any nuances or anything that's going to happen along the way, any new prohibitions? Because I also worked as a park ranger, and I know that in any park I've ever worked at, there's a litany of signs of no, as soon as you enter the park. And I was assured pretty much the entire time that it was going to be as is. So I don't know if we dropped the ball, including myself. Maybe I'm too naive to ask the right questions. Was that something that wasn't disclosed to us? So it does feel a little bit like a trick, but I just never thought I'd be in this position. We were always in charge of the town, and I'd come in here and make my point about beach driving every fall. And if y'all didn't agree with it or the town didn't agree with it, I'd be okay with that. But to have another agency come in here and buy something so precious to us as the town as that south end is, and at the same time we save it, they're gonna take away something that I've been doing with my grandfather and my father, and I've been doing with my niece and nephews. And on a quiet May day, it's over. So I don't know what else to say about that. I'm at a loss for words, really. But like I said, if anybody's interested, or I'm going to look into it, I'd like to find out who's accountable for this. Not that anything can be done now. That what's done is done. But that's why I walked outside earlier talking to them, because they said, well, this grant paid for this and that grant. We had $2 million worth of private funds. Do you think any of those people knew that beach driving was good? That even say you paid $5, who cares what the amount was? Do you think any of them knew that beach driving was going to be prohibited? So I don't know. I'm flabbergasted. I'm never at a loss for words, but I don't know what else to say.
Yeah,
It's a gut punch.
I got the shotgun from the stepped into a meeting that they said, oh, this is gonna happen. And we pushed back and tried, even to the point of.
I believe you. I believe
trying to get it even delayed for a year so we could have an idea how it's gonna affect us. We basically were told, either you do it or we will. And so, they're the ones that own the property.
And we didn't know until maybe a week and a half ago. I feel the same way about the signs still. The first time I walked down there and saw every 10 or 15 feet, now I know there's 6 feet signs with a 12 by 12 sign on them, connected by string with little pink tape on it. It's like, what did I work for? I worked for the aesthetic value, and it's just ugly. I mean, you can't even sugarcoat it. It's ugly.
Yeah, and I know these are specifics but those things sound like they're at least, that's what I was talking to them out there. A lot of those things can be talked about. This is one thing.
Nobody ever told us that. Nobody ever told us that driving on the beach would be banned, because I think you know me well enough. Out asking people to help support this and fund this, I'd have said, by the way, if you're a fan of beach driving, you might not want to write a check.
Well, and I hate it too, because what it does is, like, typically it just drives a wedge between conservation people and fishermen, which are the same, which can be the same people like me. But it's like an either or. It's binary, and I don't know. It hurts my feelings.
My first experience with what we experienced tonight goes back to what Sue and I went through in Parks and Rec. And we had a string of meetings and discussion on pickleball courts. And we had this great plan to add an additional pickleball court, and the public may even get a chance to pay for it. Then at the bottom of the ninth inning, for no fault of anyone, you reach a fine print of the grant that built the park. No, can't touch that park. So it doesn't feel right, smells bad, that kind of thing.
I like that one. I live right next to it. Two's too many.
That's right.
Already. Golly.
I'd like to say something. Ted, I've been involved in this from day one. And is there a question we should have asked? Well, that would probably be our fault, or my fault. You could say it'd be my fault. We didn't ask that specific question. Might have been because we didn't want to know the answer, but we didn't ask that, and no one brought it up, really.
It was still used after it closed. We had beach fishing after the acquisition of the track closed for a year.
But,
I mean, I don't know why these groups, the grant groups, didn't speak up then.
Well, and honestly, the first time we heard about it, you're the first person I thought of, because I know how much you have stood up for that, and I knew that it would be a gut punch.
Yeah.
And so I'm just telling you the truth.
Is there any part of the beach where our fishermen could still drive? I realize that area around the conserved area is a no, but is there any part where they can drive when the season is for driving on the beach?
It's so limited because remember the lots that along the frontage there that were such a controversial issue a while back. They're built out, I think there are 13 homes there.
Okay.
And so that's the stretch that would be remaining. And then you bleed right into Serenity Point and right into the end. But it's very limited. And, you know, the thing that somebody brought up, something I don't even want to entertain, is if we have such an issue and it's such a demand, open up the beach for driving everywhere. And that's not going to do that. And so we're caught in an area that the state is making a statement on their property.
Yeah.
And we made every chance, and we did look at how do we change it. And they indicated it'd take about 18 months to get something before one of these groups, and you're not assured that you're going to win.
But we should have been told that. We should have known.
I'm
You
okay.
can carve
I don't
this out, but it.
Yeah, I'm not blaming anybody. It just happened and it's the way it is, but it's not how I would like to end driving, you know?
Yeah.
At least on our, like, we'd be in charge of kiboshing it.
Any more public comment? No, instead of commission reports. Alex, should we start?
I guess again, just sort of remind everybody, we're gonna have a Memorial Day ceremony at, Town Center is it 11 o'clock?
7 o'clock.
We'll have bagpipe, I hope, and replaying, so join us if you can. And then I wanted to point out that, there's a person in town, not a resident, who has, I think, been very helpful to our town. And everybody's gone through this transition with the post office being closed and all the chaos that caused. And the post office is a mess, and I'm speaking as a son of a postal employee. But they're a disappointment a lot. But our local driver, Nick Price, was very helpful in negotiating with Holly Ridge Postmaster and getting us through transition to home delivery for a number of our residents. So I just wanted to shout out to Nick Price for doing that. And you know, Nick?
I do.
He's a great guy. He's been our regular carrier now, I think for about a year or two, a couple of years. So he's starting to get to know all of us. And he really did. He bet Serenity Point had all kinds of issues. And then the chapel I had to deal with, we didn't have anywhere to put a mailbox because we have parking all the way around the building. And Nick was the one I went to help us get that. A post office box somewhere for the chapel. So thank you, Nick.
Done.
I'm good.
Yes, sir.
Done.
I'm good because we're done with public safety.
Thank you. It's just beginning.
Everybody was very supportive. We just didn't know what's gonna happen in the last 2 or 3 weeks here. And there was one person who spoke up against it, and everybody else that has spoken has been very supportive. And we really appreciate it.
Again, a shout out to Mayor Smith who kicked this off. We are very fortunate that we have an architect for a mayor right now. They say God always sends you what you need. We need an architect right now, so that has helped us tremendously and made a very stressful project much easier.
Yeah, we did a lot tonight. I think we got a lot of things tonight. I mean, a lot of important things and good things. But like Tate says, I got surprised too, Tate. I mean, it's the first time I've heard about it tonight. And, yeah, and of course, you know, it's one of those things that probably nothing else we can do about it, but I wish we could. But we did a lot of good things tonight, but that was one thing I hated to do.
Yeah, I think there are 2 things tonight. The siding and the building are going to continue as a legacy for years and years to come. And I think we all ought to take advantage of that. And I'll be done. I don't want to see the building numbers anymore for a while.
Second
It's funny, do you?
It was tedious and no fault to anyone. It just, when you got that size of a project, there are a lot of moving parts. And that's, he or our attorney has to get all those parts together.
The letters, words.
And the plans.
Yeah.
The documents are intense and extensive, so it's gonna take a couple hours at least. Again, please come to the, Memorial Day. I think it's, good. We got the bagpiper will be there, so he's practicing that. And, I'd always practice, but, it'll be a nice event. And the 19th, for the handoff. And, Kate, you may not want to be there. No, it's,
Come on down, Tate.
just don't drive on the beach. That was kind of a joke. They wanted to drive on the beach and have it, but then we talked about it. I don't think people will drive on the beach for that. And then block the beach for any other time. So, but the Secretary of DEQ is going to be there for the handoff. And that's an important person that we need to have here and to see what we're doing, because he has direct line to purse strings. So, a good, good meeting, and I thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Second.
I'll adjourn. Bye.
I don't think that would be.